So the other thing I wanted to show was how to make something simple like spines, and these are all done with the form environment, but how do you make them all fit? Do you have to place them all manually? Well, you can, but that would just be a pain, so why bother? But it would simply be making these spines. Yes, I made it individually using the form environment, but we are using these edge tools or these edges. So the natural edges between faces, let me change coloration so you can see more clearly. These lines can absolutely become a path to follow. And there is the tool under Create. We've been using patterns so far, like rectangle pattern to make a grid, circle pattern to make a circle pattern, but there is also pattern on a path. So you can create multiples of a single object, and whatever your path is, just like using the sweep or loft or pipe tool, you can also generate copies of an object along that path. So the example I started playing with, and I inadvertently created a Audrey 2 here. So any fans of Little Shop of Horror or whatever, started out as Pac-Man, but then it just kind of kept going, and these things happen. But all I did was I used, when I made this, it was simply a sphere that I just pulled a section inward on, and these edge lines that are already present, I simply use that as my path to create multiples. So what I would do is, and it's irrelevant what I made for the object. That was just like I said, it was a sphere, which was simply just a sphere object in the form to environment, and then I made a little tooth shape. With that, then I played around with actually the same tools I just showed for projecting a sketch onto the surface, and used a pipe tool to create the little like cabbage veins there. So this could also be just a mutation of the revenge for my cabbages. But what we can do here is make a simple tooth and use any variety of either existing line or create a path line to create multiples. So what I'm going to do here is let's just go back to the created form environment, and I'll make a tooth. Now remember, because there's no history within the form environment, there's no capture history or history recorded, you only have the ghost of a prior image as reference points. And that's okay. So what I did to create those teeth was, let's try to keep it simple, straight onto the front, and I actually made this from the right side, so my front is the right, so whatever. For this, you can use whatever you want. You want to use a box, a sphere, cylinder, whatever the heck. I started with a plane just because I kind of had in mind what I was going to do. So, yep, smack in the middle, and I'm going to start with a center point rectangle, just right in the center. I don't know. I think I made it like, let's make it 4 by 4, something like that. Cool. And it's 4 by 4, or it's 2 by 2 edges. No problem. For edit form, I'm just going to drag a point downward. Oh, whoops, I meant to turn off symmetry on that. So let's clear symmetry. I did not want symmetry on that, or rather, I wanted it left and right, not top and bottom. There we go. So now when I go to edit form, select by a single vertex, drag that downward. This is a little bit wide, so I'm going to select all the top ones and just kind of shrink this so I have like a little bit less like fence picket teeth and more like that. Okay, really simple. Hit OK. If this is still too boxy for you, remember, you can even go in and delete vertices. So select one on the left or the right, and it'll do the same on the other one. All right, that's a little more toothy. Give it megalodon teeth. It'll be pretty entertaining. And then I'm just going to use a thicken tool to add dimension, because right now it is simply just that surface thickness. So thicken, sure, soft thicken, why not? Kind of a little pillowy tooth. I don't know why my center of rotation is off here, but you can pretty much just whatever. You make it sharper or whatever you feel like, that's up to you. You want to make it sharpy sharp? I'll use the crease tool and put a little sharpened end. Ooh, now it's got like knife teeth. Cool. All right, that's unnerving. All right, so now I have, yeah, I'm going to end up giving it megalodon teeth. All right, and that's pretty much it. I just made a simple tooth. Go to finish form. I got to find the thing. Let me relabel that. Top tooth. And use the move tool to bring that into position. So I just pressed M on my keyboard, letter M, and I'm just going to drag that wherever. So right about there. And since I'm intending to use one of these pre-existing lines, I'm going to put it on that line. Rotate it however you want. If you want that to be more pointed outward, inward, whatever, that is, again, entirely up to you. Right about there works for me. Or just the one menacing snaggletooth on top, whatever. I can use one of these pre-existing lines, or if I want to make my own line, be the same thing I just did. I would create a sketch, looking at it in profile. I could do something like maybe a fit point spline in this case. Finish sketch. And then I would simply do, again, what I just did, the split face. What faces do I want to select? Let's just grab all of those to make sure I'm getting the right one. Oops, somehow I got on the corner. Select all the ones there that face touches. And then select that line. And now that split face has created a path line all the way around. So that's how we're going to work with this. Now, granted, I just put that in the wrong spot, so I guess I'll have to deal with that. That made it really funky. I didn't mean to do it that way. Let's drag that back in a little bit. But that's also a good tool. I can show you that this does go back in there, so we can continue to tweak this line. So it's a little bit more in check with where I wanted it to be. Hit OK again. It recalculates. There we go. That is going to create a nightmare, like usual. Okay, so I created a path, or you could use one of the naturally occurring paths from the faces, just the edges between faces. So again, I go to create, pattern. This time it's pattern on a path. It just creates multiples of an object along a path instead. So my object is that one tooth. On the toolbox, switch to path. And now let's start selecting those edge lines. Oops. I selected more than I meant to. Let's make sure I got the right one. There we go. All right, so that's selected all the way around. Now you start dragging. Now it's only going one direction. Don't want that. So go down on your toolbox where it says direction. I want it symmetric. All right. How far out do I want them to go? Quite a ways. I can either type it in numerically or add the slider to just start adding so many teeth. And you saw it just instantly start generating them, but they are all as they originally were. I want them to actually curve along the path. So at the very bottom, before you hit OK, where it says orientation, go from identical to path direction. That reorients the teeth in line with the path. And now I just have created this absolute nightmare creature with a row of teeth. Hit OK. Now, granted, my line kind of went further out than I meant to, so I can always go back and readjust that line. But using the split faces, that simply applies that line to the faces and subdivides the faces. That's all it does. Granted, we played around with a little bit of like offset face. You might be able to play with that some more, but main thing I want to show you is just how you could create multiple objects along that path simply using an edge or a path that you have generated on there. That's all. And just much easier way to make a lot more of something follow a path. And as long as you also augment the orientation from identical to follow path, your iterated, in this case, teeth or adorable little dino spines will follow along the path and the surface orientation you created it on. So that's all pretty simple. More teeth. And there you go. I'll just leave you with that image. You're welcome. All right. Good luck with it.